Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Unfiltered Lens, a podcast where we have genuine and unfiltered conversations. Today, I decided to not record myself. I am at home. It's late, but I wanted to record an episode, so it's going to be an audio only, which is okay because typically podcasts are just audio. But for today's episode, I wanted to talk about living on your own or living with roommates. And I figured I could give a little bit of tips or just things to think about if this is your first time considering moving on your own or with roommates. Because damn well it's fucking expensive out here in SoCal to fucking live on your own. So typically it's with roommates. But yeah, I feel like I have some experience in it since I did live on my own for about 3 years or so. So I felt like I could give some input. I feel like there's a lot of things that I learned from it that I had to learn the hard way and kind of on my own because none of my siblings had moved out really. And so it was just all a learning experience for me. And I thought, why not share some things? Maybe it'll help someone, or maybe you can relate to a lot of these things that I'm going to speak on. But before I get into that, I think it's important to know a little bit about the background of why I wanted to move out. I think it kind of ties in with what I want to speak on. So before we get into that, you're going to hear about that. Let's start off with the type of kid I was growing up, I guess, and my mentality about all of this. Also, I'm at home recording this, and there's dogs. We have dogs. You guys know Winston, and they're gonna make noise. So if you hear it, sorry. Also, you're probably gonna hear voices. Sorry. I'll do my best to clear out the background, basically. Okay. So as a kid in middle school, because I'm going to start with middle school because I can't remember anything before that, guys. I have such a bad memory. And middle school is usually where I remember somewhat most things. Anyway, so since I can remember since middle school, I was a kind of careless and confused kid. I was confused on who I should be or what I should be doing. I feel like everybody goes through that. I feel like everybody as a kid kind of goes through that. And yeah, I think we all have those moments. But I was somewhat careless. I'm the youngest of 4. So I feel like that's very typical behavior for the youngest kid. But when I say I was confused, I felt like I was kind of just doing things that other kids were doing because I didn't know better. I think at that time, I just kind of didn't know how to decide for myself. So I remember thinking in middle school that adults, I looked at adult as oh, they have their shit together and they know what they're supposed to be doing and they know who they are. And once I was an adult, I would know everything, quote unquote, everything, right? Because honestly, that's not true, but that was my way of thinking. That was my mentality. I was yeah, I don't know shit now, and I'm super fucking confused about everything that a middle school kid could be confused about. And that led me to think yeah, when I'm older, when I'm an adult, I will know everything, and everything will be fine and dandy. And right when I was an adult, when I was living on my own, when I was doing everything that adults do, basically. Okay, that was my mindset as a middle school kid. And so because I had that mindset, I wasn't ever afraid to grow up from middle school until I can remember all of high school. And it's funny because even to some extent, that kind of is still stuck with me now. As a 25-year-old, I'm not scared to get to 30 or to get to 35, right? Or 35, because now as an adult, I'm well, I'm only gonna get wiser. I'm only gonna have experienced life more. So it's funny to an extent how I still kind of think like that, but it's no longer unrealistic ideas of life. It's more like life is shitty, we get it, it's bad, make the most of it, but it's not a bad thing to get older, basically. So yeah, that's where I'm at with that. But anyway, because of that mentality of growing up, of not being scared to grow up, after high school, I was always like, my goal was always to move out. But because I was raised by a single parent who was protective and traditional, I knew that it wouldn't be easy. And I'm sure many can relate, especially if you live in a traditional, strict Hispanic household. So you just know, it's difficult, I think for Hispanic traditional like households, if you leave your parents, you don't love your family. Like it automatically goes to that. It's like that. It's such a disrespectful thing. Like, how could you leave your family, right? So technically, my only way out was, or my only excuse for my mom, so that it wouldn't be felt like I don't love my family, would be school. Yeah, so I remember after high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do career-wise. I was still kind of, not fully, still following everyone, but kind of was. I was still kind of just following everyone else. Specifically at this time, I was following my older sister's footsteps, because it seemed like she knew what she was doing. And again, at this point, I really didn't know like what I wanted to do career-wise. But I remember at this point, I just remember thinking, I know life will make sense when I'm living on my own. So I was still kind of like thinking that even at this point after graduating and in like community college, like I still remember thinking like it's gonna get good once I'm out on my own, because reality hit. Reality hit when I actually went to college. And he's crying. Yeah, reality hit when Hunter. Karen, can you let him out? Attention all animal lovers in Orange County, LA County, and San Bernardino County. If you're looking to add a furry friend to your family, be sure to check out at Saving Los Cachorritos on Instagram, created by my sister-in-law. This page aims to shine a light on dogs in need of forever homes. You'll find all the links to follow me and this podcast in the description. Okay, so yeah, again, at this point, I just remember like still thinking, I know life would make sense once I was out living on my own, because at this point I was in community college and reality hit basically. Like I realized life actually gets more complicated, because now I was having more responsibilities, having to try to figure out my ideal career while trying to figure out my financial plans in order to let myself move out, while still having giving myself the chance to live life and have fun and all that, right? So reality hit a little bit more, but I was still with that mindset of like, okay, well, this is reality, but when I'm on my own and I'm not in a crowded home, then life will be okay. Why I was thinking like this was, I think, more just because I really was like craving independence and privacy, and because reality hit and all these things were coming up, it just felt like it made moving out plans seem farther and farther away. And then COVID happened, so I'm not gonna get too deep into like how COVID impacted me, but basically on top of worrying about everybody's health and worrying about what life was gonna look like, during that time I just knew that if doors ever opened and once doors opened again and we weren't quarantined and all that good stuff, that I was going to make it a priority, like the priority, to move out, even if it wasn't for school. Because at that point I was like, felt like I was trapped and I had enough, basically. So after the doors were open, I worked my ass off. I was able to work, save up some money. I did get I used my financial aid for help because it's expensive out here, guys. It's fucking expensive. But I was able to move out to my apartment at 22 with 2 roommates, one of them being my best friend, which made things even more fun and exciting. And we definitely miss it a lot. We talk about it. It's something we miss very deeply. And then so I moved out with them for about 2 years, and then I then moved out with another friend for another year. So I have a total of 3 years of experience. So that's a little background of why I decided to move out and like what motivated me to move out. And that leads me to today's episode, which is helpful tips, maybe some advice on moving out if this is your first time, like I mentioned before. Like, I don't know, you might be a teen listening to this, and maybe some of these things will help you, because I wish I would have known them a little sooner. And if you're an adult, maybe these things you live on your own, maybe you went through these things too, and you're like, yup, she's right about that, or I don't know, right? In some way, shape, or form, maybe these 5 little tips, guides, whatever, may help or resonate. So yeah. So number 1, when deciding to move out, I think the biggest thing that I always kept with me, and it was in my head all the time during the time when I was like saving money and making little sacrifices of like, oh, maybe I couldn't go out, or whatever. It was this thing that my siblings always told or would constantly say when I would bring it up of like, yeah, I'm going to go see an apartment today or whatever, right? My siblings would say, if you can afford to move out on your own, then by all means go for it. Don't expect your parent or our parent to help you. And that like sat with me, and I was like, well, duh, like that's an obvious. I think truly they were saying it to like scare me, and because they really thought I wouldn't be able to do it. And so I think to them it was like, we're going to say this because maybe 1, to be like, so that I'd be realistic about things, but 2, to like scare me into thinking that it wasn't going to be possible. But the more I thought about it, the more I was like, no, like I get why they're saying it. So many teenagers want to do it, want to move out, want to do the thing. And especially if you don't come from a lot of money, you kind of like expect the parent to help, right? And well, if you're barely coming from a place of financial stability, like it's really not, you can't depend on the parent. Like if it's something you want to do, at least that's how we see it here, right? Like the way we grew up. Like if you wanted to get something done, it was on you. And so that stuck with me. And I knew like, well, if I couldn't depend on my parent, like it was going to come from me. And that was even better, because then it'd show how committed I was to this goal, I guess. I understand that everyone moving out situation may be different. So let's just put it in the perspective that your situation is similar to mine, right? But it's just good advice. Like it shows 3 important things. And those 3 things are first being responsibility, because that means you have a realistic understanding that it's on you to show everyone and yourself that you can do it, even if it means sacrificing a couple things. Like maybe you can't go out with friends 2 weeks in a row, or maybe you can't splurge on yourself a little bit this month because that money has to go towards your savings. Like you just know what's a priority at that point, right? Number 2, I think it shows determination. Especially once you move out, you start to realize you have to be determined and consistent in order to continue to be able to live on your own, because you don't have the help of your parent. And not to say that like parents won't help you. Like I ended up having to be in a situation where my mom did have to help me for 3 months on like the last year of me living on my own, and that was just unfortunate events that happened. But overall, the entire time that I was on my own, that was all me. I had to figure out like where my priorities stood, because I needed to know where my money was going to go. Did I have enough money to cover all my bills and expenses for the month? And if I didn't, I had to figure that shit out, basically. And then finally, I think it shows maturity, especially if you're a teen looking to move out for the first time. Also, especially if you come from a Mexican household, like just to speak on that side really quick, parents will like always see you. I think overall in general, it doesn't even have to be like Hispanic households, but like parents will always see you as their little kid. But if you can show all these three traits, like especially the maturity part, I think, I guess maybe not just maturity, just all these three traits, I think it shows and allows them to feel safe enough to like let you go. But those three, like, and then you start to realize that those three traits are super important to have when moving out. Like if you lack in any of these three traits, to me, in my opinion, I feel like living on your own with whomever will be a struggle. If you lack in one of them, it's like you're gonna struggle for sure. Like and consistency. I should have put consistency on here, but if you're not consistent with these three things, you know, if you're not responsible with your money, you may not be able to pay rent and or for XYZ reason, and that looks bad, right? If you're not determined enough to do something about it, then there you go, you struggle again, and that looks bad. Like you have, when you move out, you now have to basically be in good terms with your landlord, and if you can't do what you're supposed to do and you look bad with your landlord, that doesn't show maturity. That shows that you're still a kid. That shows that you have no responsibility. If you think you lack in one of these three things, maybe moving out isn't ideal, right? I don't know. That's up for you guys to think. That's just my opinion. Number 2, I think when it comes to actually looking into places, like when you're out there now, right? You're like, yep, I need to go and do my research on apartment hunting or whatever, because I'm strictly speaking on like apartment hunting, because I don't know if that's the same as for house rentals, but I only ever rented apartments. That's where I'm sticking with. Okay. When it comes to actually looking into places, understand the financial aspect. I think if it's your first time doing this, you'll better understand it when you actually go and visit properties. So just know that if like your budget is $2,300, like just an example, you won't make it just by saving $2,300. Your savings should be like triple that, because most places will ask for deposit, first month's rent. You got to think about utilities and furniture. Furniture, guys, let me tell you, once you got your place, don't stress so much about like the little things and decorating your freaking, how your room's gonna look or your whatever your space. Think about the major big things: a couch, a table, some chairs, some maybe like things where you get like pots and pans to cook, you know, to get you situated, a bed to get you situated. Think of the big stuff first. Try to save, look around as you're like apartment hunting for some places, you know. You can buy them brand new, but there's a lot of good stuff on OfferUp. I'm just saying, I did it. I found a great couch on OfferUp. But anyway, think about those things, because I saved up a pretty decent amount of money, and I think so did like my best friend, but not enough. Clearly not enough, because we had gotten our apartment, guys, and and we got everything paid, but we didn't have enough to get a freaking table yet, or a couch at this point. It was like first week of moving in. We only had like our beds, nothing in the kitchen, nothing in the living room. So our table where we would like eat our meals would be a moving box. We'd be on the ground. We'd be on the ground and sitting on the ground, and in between both of us was a moving box, and we'd use that as a fucking table. So just like keep those things in mind. And also I wish I knew about this one thing specifically sooner, because to me it was like a curveball kind of thrown at me. But some places may ask for like house insurance. I didn't even know that was a freaking, when I was first moving out and looking into these things, like I didn't even know what the fuck that was. Like, but house insurance, you got to pay for that shit, because yeah, places will ask for that. They don't trust you, and so they got to make sure you're not going to wreck shit. So yeah, look, so you gotta save for that. So just be realistic about your money, be realistic about your financial aspects, like the financial aspects, sorry. And if you think you've saved enough, you haven't. Triple it. Moving on to number three. Number three, picking roommates. This is, I think super duper 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 important. Whether you're looking for a room to rent, right, like out on your own, or you are gathering your own group, if that's the route you're going, right? If you are financially stable enough to live out on your own, dude, I'm jealous. But if you're moving out with people, right? Please, 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 first of all, be safe. Be safe. And second, be sure you get like, if you're going to go out and rent a room somewhere, just make sure that you get a good vibe from them, that you know that they're responsible, that they're nice, kind people, or that that you just I think when someone's like a little off or something. I think it's important to maybe like have a list of questions you want to ask them so that you know that you're comfortable and safe. So like things like, how long have you guys lived here? And how many people have you had living here in the last year? Right? Because if they've had like 8 or more, like something's wrong, right? Maybe you shouldn't be there. Maybe there's a reason why they keep renting the room, you know? Is there a like, if you're a tidy person, I mean, I would hope everyone is, but not realistic. Some people are messy or don't care. But I think it's important to ask like if there's like a cleaning routine or a schedule, or like how clean they might be, right? Like you want to live somewhere clean. A good one would be like, what can you expect with like loudness, right? You might be someone who works really early and needs a good night rest. Like, what does that look like? You just want to be in a place where they respect you, right? Especially because I've heard horrible stories where people go and rent a room and it turns out their roommates aren't tidy. Going back to cleansingness. Yeah, and unfortunately, like those people end up having to be the person to clean up after everyone. And that's, dude, who fucking likes that? No, thank you. And yeah, that just never leads to anything good. And typically someone ends up having to leave. Ask all the good questions, And now if you are moving out with your own group of friends, right? So when I was moving out and I had made my own little group, I always heard, now this one's a bit tricky, guys. I always heard it's not a good idea to move out with your best friend. So many people were like, you're going to ruin your friendship. You're not going to have that friend anymore. She's no longer going to be your best friend. Now, I can see, because I got a lot of examples, right, from these people who told me, and I could see that being an issue if you have the type of friends that won't listen, don't care what you have to say, only care about themselves. That can make a lot of sense. It just depends on the type of people that you're with, right? That you surround yourself with. Me and my best friend, we're still going strong. We are still friends. I ended up moving out, but that was not beef with her. I didn't ruin our friendship. We are still best friends. So I think that can be true to a certain extent. You just have to know the type of people who you are going to be living with. You want to be able to know if you are with people who will just say it how it is, not get upset. And I think from there, like, there should be no problem for the most part. I think, when you also have to be realistic, and when you move out with like friends, like you guys should like, I'd say I think if I were to move out with roommates again, I for sure would, like more than one person, right? I for sure would probably like set rules and make sure like everyone is okay with them, have everyone put input, like make sure everyone is just acknowledgeable and knows how things are going to go. Be respectful of things. If you can have that kind of conversation with the people you're moving out and not feel any type of way or feel like they maybe misunderstood you or hurt you might hurt their feelings or whatever the case may be, if it's all good, then cool. Those are the people that you want to go and move with, right? And that they're going to be responsible and they're going to have their rent when it's due and all that good stuff. But if there are people who you're like, oh, I don't know how to actually tell them this stuff and I don't know how to actually bring this up, or maybe I'm overreacting or whatever, don't. I'm telling you right now, don't move with those people, because if you can't simply communicate the things that need to be communicated, not a good idea. It's just not a good idea. That's just my opinion. I think the roommate situation is definitely something that has to be organized and or planned out if you're moving out with friends very thoroughly. I think, you don't want to end friendships because of living together. And then moving on to number 4, areas and location. This is really important too. Again, when you're moving on your own, you obviously have to be safe, guys. Like, let that be a pretty big priority too. I know these are all like pretty big priorities, but these are pretty big, right? So when you're looking at places, you don't want the area, you want to go and look at the area, right? You want to go check out. And I find it, because I did this before, that most people go and like check the areas during the day, but you have to be realistic about these things. Sometimes during the day, people are at work, so it may seem calm, but maybe it isn't. That's when you have to go at night. Drive around and check the areas, check what the vibe is really like. Maybe you don't like a loud area, and during the day, it seems super fucking calm and peaceful, and at night, it's fucking rowdy as shit. You don't want that. Who wants that? No one wants that. And so I think it's important to go and check daytime and nighttime. Take a friend with you. Don't go alone. Take a friend. Take one of your roommates. I think for people who maybe say you want to move out of state, I've never done that. But when I do, I think what I would do is probably take a trip out in whatever state I end up going to, stay out there for 2 weeks and do the same thing. Because the first apartment that I moved out to, it seemed calm. It was pretty calm. For the area, I think it was pretty good. Honestly, it was nice. There wasn't a lot going on. Because we were by a big street though, like a big busy street, you would hear a lot of like cops, a lot of helicopters, a lot of ambulances. Like you would hear a lot of that, all the big major noises. But overall, like neighbors and safety wise, I found it pretty safe. Like, not gonna lie, pretty safe. For the area that we were in, pretty freaking safe. My second apartment though, it was nice during the day. And my second apartment, guys, I left it to my roommate to be in charge of that whole thing. I put my trust into this roommate. Probably should have done more because the area that she chose was nice. It was decent for the price. But the area during the daytime was super calm and cool, which, was nice. But we didn't check at night. And at night, it was crazy packed. This place also only came with one parking spot, and there was 2 rooms. That's a whole nother thing. But parking was ass. Hated parking there. So also check for parking. There was constant noise, especially because where we were at it's a dog friendly place, which cool, that's fine. It's expected for it to be a little loud here and there because of animals, but this was too much. I don't know. The second place, I liked my first apartment way better than my second, but I like more of the privacy in my second place than my first. Anyway, okay, moving on. Finally, and this is my last little advice, I guess. And again, it might not be a thing for everyone. It did happen for me and my best friend. And that's because we came from living in a full house, right? Like with siblings or aunts, uncles. Like our houses were just always full. To basically living solo. And it will feel lonely. When I moved out, I realized my day was either all day in school, half day at work, half day at school. And then by the time I got home, it was I came home to an empty house because I was only living with 2 other people who also had lives and also had their own things going on. So it was very random when we were actually all together. For the most part, I was fucking alone, and it felt very, very, very lonely, which is why I actually got Winston, my 3-year-old golden, because I felt so lonely and I needed someone with me or something with me, and that was Winston. So, which is funny because during that time I remember thinking like, no, I like being on my own. I can handle being on my own, but this is like a different type of alone. But know that you're not alone. Like, again, everyone's situation is different, but you know, you have friends and you have family. And so it's going to feel lonely, but maybe like don't let that affect your overall decision. Just know that that's a common feeling. If you do move out and you do feel this and you're like, damn, I don't know if I did the right thing. Maybe I should just like leave or whatever, right? Like, let that kind of give you some kind of peace of mind. That's just my little spiel. I feel like no one really tells you how that's an actual thing. Like, I remember when I was doing my own research and when I was like talking to people about like moving out, everyone would always see it as like yeah, it's great, it's fun, you get to do your own thing, you have your privacy, you have this, you have that, but no one ever freaking talked about how lonely you would feel. And it wasn't until like me and my best friend had a conversation and we're like, dude, do you feel fucking sad and alone? Because I do. And yeah, we both came to the conclusion that like, oh, okay, so we're both feeling it, so it must be just normal, which it is. It is very normal. But yeah, these were 5 little tips, little things to think about if you're thinking about moving out. Yeah, I think you learned so much. I think you learned so much about yourself too. Like you realize like how much you're capable of, and it's fun. If you're good at being smart with your money and being smart overall about like how to handle your shit, you can have fun, and it's a great experience for sure. That concludes the episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Also, I'd love to hear if you guys have crazy stories about like living on your own or any wild stories you've heard, you know, share them in the comments. My recommendation for the week is the song Genesis by a UK artist named Ray. She is recently someone who I have been obsessed with. The song's 7 minutes long, but it's phenomenal. Go and listen to that. Yeah. Okay. That's it. Bye. Attention all animal lovers in Orange County, LA County, and San Bernardino County. If you're looking to add a furry friend to your family, be sure to check out at Saving Los Cachorritos on Instagram, created by my sister-in-law. This page aims to shine a light on dogs in need of forever homes. You'll find all the links to follow me and this podcast in the description.